We're live now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this morning's OSB meeting, the first of this year. We'll go straight to the agenda. Apologies for absence. Have we got any, Caroline?
Yes, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Morstan, Councillor Jones and Councillor McTighe, and Councillor Ron Arundel is here in place of Councillor McTighe today. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Thank you. Have we any declarations of interest? Okay, I can't see anything. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, the minutes of the overview and scrutiny board on the 27th of April. Can we say these with true reading, please?
To move them, Chair.
Thank you. The minutes for the overview and scrutiny board on the 11th of May are to follow, I believe, Caroline.
Yeah, they're not finalised. Sorry, Chair. We'll bring them to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the Executive Forward Work Programme. Caroline, I'll hand that over to you.
Yeah, it's just a standard item on the agenda so that members of the board can see what's coming up in terms of the forward plan, and if there are any areas that members have got any questions on to raise here initially today or to perhaps look at as part of the work programme for this year, Chair.
Okay, has anybody got any questions or comments on that? Can't see anybody. No. Okay, thank you, Caroline. Agenda item number 6 is the Chief Executive's update. Tony, can I hand it to you, please, mate? You're on mute, Tony.
First to do it. Thanks, Chair. Gemma's going to share the presentation. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go through the presentation. Not a massive amount of slides for this one. I just want to cover the things that are on my and LMT's agenda at the moment. So the stuff that will come to the fore over the next few months, and then just the stuff that's coming up through executive over the next month or so. So if we've gone to the first slide, please, Gemma. So these are the things that we're dealing with at the moment, either as an LMT or that I'm kind of trying to drive forward. So the first is the refresh of the medium-term financial plan and our budget planning for 23-24, not 22-23. So we've started that process now of trying to understand what the additional pressures are that we will face over the medium term, and then we'll discuss those with executive. And once we've arrived at a kind of agreed version of what our pressures are, then we'll start the process of looking at the savings that we need to make in order to balance that budget. It's fair to say that we've got some significant pressures that we're going to have to reflect in the medium-term financial plan. We're all aware of inflation, and whilst we have made some provision for inflation, whether or not it'll be enough, it's 9.1% today, predicted to go up to 11%. We'll have to wait and see the impact that that will have on the pay award, for example. We'll have to wait and see. We've always made provision for 2%. That's obviously not going to be enough. Each 1% adds around about, I think it's £800,000 to our pay bill. You know, and the government decide what the pay award is, but we've got to fund it. So inflation is going to absolutely be a pressure for us. Demand will be a pressure, and there's a whole host of other items that will become pressures as well. We do have some mitigation that we can put in place, so it's a bit of a moving target. But getting to a point by the end of this month where we've at least got a first agreed draft of what our gap is for next year is our plan at the moment. And we've got another session tomorrow, which should hopefully produce that. The external auditors closure of accounts exercise for the 2021 financial year is ongoing. It's some way overdue. That's because of a number of issues not associated with the council, but some technical issues about accounts that apply nationally, and COVID, which has had an impact. The closure of accounts looks at two things. So it looks at have we accounted for things correctly? So have we put the items of expenditure and income that we've got in the right place in our accounts. And generally, yes, that's fine. What they also look at is value for money. So do we demonstrate value for money in the way that we spend that public money? I think it's fair to say that there are some concerns from the external auditor, and it's very, very likely that they will place an except for qualification on the accounts, which means that they will say that they have some concerns about our ability to demonstrate value for money, and they will be related to governance. We're awaiting the final letter to get the detail of that, and there are sessions planned in with the Corporate Audit and Assurance Committee to go through that in some detail from the 14th of July onwards, or the week before the 14th of July, sorry. The letter will be public on the 14th of July. So there's a lot of work and a lot of toing and froing with the auditors on that at the moment. Reoccupation of the Civic and preparations to move into Fountain Court are something that we press on with. I've had a couple of comments from members that, you know, we need to get more staff working in the Civic Centre. My response on that has been that we've got to remember that the Civic Centre was too big for us. It's hugely inefficient space-wise, and pre-pandemic, only 50% of desks were occupied at any one point in time. And we're now trying to reduce that further, so the building will look empty, because Fountain Court only has 40% of the capacity that the Civic Centre has. So we need to make sure that we don't have a culture where too many people come in, because otherwise we won't fit in Fountain Court. So there's a lot of work going on around that, and lots of issues coming up associated with reoccupation, a lot of issues coming up with working from home, lots of queries, nothing insurmountable, but it's soaking up a lot of time at the moment. The strategic plan, work plan for this year was approved by executive in March, and we've now got all of those, each of those, we've got project plans and milestone plans. So we've now got in place the performance monitoring. So making sure that those things are happening and that we don't have delays to the implementation of that is something that we're putting a lot of work into at the moment, in particularly Gemma. Locality working is something that we're looking at linking in terms of, we set a pilot off 3 years ago, a 2-year pilot 3 years ago. But COVID's had a massive impact on that. So we're really only 1 year into it. So we're looking at how that's working with a particular eye on what we've learned and how that should shape the rollout of locality working in Hemlington and possibly one other area. Health and safety is something that we're taking a lot of time on at the moment, and in particular my concern there is around violence towards staff, whether that be physical or verbal. So we're averaging at the moment, at least via reports, 1 attack on staff per week. So really getting into the detail of that and understanding where that's taking place, what we can do to mitigate, and what we can do to protect our staff is something that we're putting a lot of effort into. So just, Isabel, would you see the dog? Sorry, my dog was yapping. The town centre is something I'm paying a lot of attention to at the moment. So there's loads of money going into the town centre because of future high street funds, towns funds, Brownhill land funds, the investment that we put in ourselves as a council, the investment that's coming in from the private sector. And we've got lots of developments on the back of that. You know, you can see the office that's going up on the Melrose House site, Boho X, housing units that are going up over in Middlehaven, the developments that are taking place in Captain Cook Square and such like. All that's great. But I met with 30 to 40 retailers last week before last, and we're looking at the condition of the town itself, because if we want people to work in the town, to live in the town, to get educated in the town, or to visit the town for any other reason, it's got to be safe, it's got to be welcoming, and there are issues with crime, antisocial behaviour and feelings of safety across the town centre. So I've met with the retailers, and we've started a process where we'll look at putting some enhanced support into the town centre so that we can deal with the issues in there. There's a workshop that will take place with them in the next 6 weeks, and we'll come up with a town centre plan. It might well be that the town centre becomes the fourth locality for locality work, and that's something I'm quite keen on the basis that, you know, our whole strategy is based on an economically active town centre will contribute to an economically active borough, and also improve the social the kind of social economics of the town. So we've got to make sure that if we're putting facilities in there, that people feel that it's a safe and welcoming place to visit and use them. So there's a lot of work going on into that, and I'll be coming back with a detailed plan on that in around about 2 months' time. Nutrient neutrality. So this, you might wonder what that is. So there was a case in Holland whereby there was a decision that meant that house builders, just skip back please, Gemma, where house builders, it was demonstrated that house builders were having a negative impact on the on nutrients within waterways, and so that's now being applied in England. Happened in the Solent about a year ago.
Can I excuse you, Tony? Can I excuse you, Tony, please?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not sure where everybody else is getting it, but you really are breaking up. I don't know whether you can do anything at
Yeah,
your
it's
end.
breaking up with me as well.
And Ray, yeah, I think it's with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony, it's illegible. I can't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
just
sure
breaking
whether you
up.
can do anything at your end, Tony or Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Try and stop my. I'll stop my video and see if that helps. Am I coming through better now?
Keep going, and I'll come back in, Tony. We can't really tell until you start. Start.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was up to nutrient neutrality.
yeah,
Do you need me to
that's
cover
fine
anything?
now. That seems fine now. Yeah, go to that nutrient neutrality again. Yeah.
Yeah. So this comes from a case in Holland where it was demonstrated that building of new homes had an adverse impact on nutrients within waterways. It's over here now, and it's in this area. So it's an issue that means that whenever you're building new houses,
I'm sorry, Tony. I don't know whether the rest of the board is. You're still coming over, really breaking
Yeah, it's
up.
breaking up again. It started fine and then it just drifted off again into a.
Let me just change my internet connection if I can, and see if that makes any difference.
How are we doing, Tony? Okay.
Is that coming through? Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it, Tony, but we won't know until you start again. We'll give you another opportunity.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Keep going, Tony. Keep talking. I'll let you know.
Okay, so nutrient neutrality impacts on our planned house building program because we've got to be able to demonstrate that we are mitigating any adverse impact on waterways from dwellings.
I'm sorry, Tony. You really are. You're not coming through it all. It's just, you can't recognise what you're saying.
All right, I'm sorry about that. Is that any better now?
It is, yeah. It sounds a bit until yeah.
I've changed my internet and I've moved location, so I'll
No,
give
you
it one
sound
more go,
fine.
Chair, if that's all right.
You sound fine from there, Tony. Stay where you are in your house. You
I
sound
will.
fine
I
there.
won't move. I won't move.
Go on then, go.
So nutrient neutrality, it's about adverse impact on waterways from new house building and a requirement to mitigate against that. So it's a new requirement that comes out of a court judgment in Holland. And what that will do is potentially significantly impact on our house building program in the short term. So over the next 12 to 18 months. So we're trying to find a way around that, and also trying to calculate the impact on our medium-term financial plan, because of course our medium-term financial plan is supported by growth in housing. And then the final thing that's kind of taking up time at the moment is the proposed establishment of a mayoral development corporation for the town centre. We're trying to get all of the documentation required complete by the end of July, and that documentation would be the business case, which would be presented to government, the constitution for how the development corporation would operate, which accompanies that, and then what would happen to assets that Middlesbrough Council currently hold, and whether or not they would transfer into the corporation. Some of those assets, of course, come with profit, and so we would want that profit protecting for the council, and some of them come with liabilities, and obviously the Mayoral Development Corporation wouldn't want to accept liabilities only. So that's quite a detailed piece of work that will take us at least another 4 weeks. So that's taken up a lot of time at this point in time. If we move on to upcoming executive decisions, Gemma, and I'll whip through these. So in July, we've got a meeting in July. We'll be taking a report that seeks approval for us to join the global network of age-friendly cities and communities so that we can get age-friendly town status. We're a dementia-friendly town, and this will add to the work that we do to make sure that we provide an experience that's fitting for people over a certain age. We want to expand 50 Futures. So 50 Futures is a scheme we launched a couple of years ago that we push that where we try and make contact with really hard to reach groups and people and get them involved in positive activity that allows them to move closer to the jobs market. It's been really good so far. We've got some great individual stories of people who haven't worked for over 20 years and have now got a job because they've been through 50 Futures. But we want to expand that both within the council and across other employers. You'll all be aware that the council approved additional spend on youth provision as part of the budget this year, particularly to be targeted in areas of high antisocial behaviour. So the report that sets out the approach to that is due to go to executive in July. We've also got a scrutiny panel report from the Children and Young People Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel about locality working from a children's services perspective. So it's looked at what was going on in Newport and North Ormsby, and there's a number of recommendations that come out of that report that we'll provide responses to. And then if we move on, Gemma. We've got a welfare strategy, so this comes from finance. We've got lots and lots of different places where people can go for help if they're in need, and that's quite there's a number of issues with that. So one, it's difficult for the individual because there's lots of different pots with lots of different places to apply within the council, and it's quite difficult for us because we get multiple applications for the same thing to different funds. So we're trying to pull those into one so that there's just a kind of one-stop shop approach. So if somebody is in need of financial assistance, they can contact one person who can look at all of the funds available and resolve their issue for them without the need to pass them on to other people. There's also a proposal to create some additional office space at One Centre Square. So the ground floor unit there that was going to be for food and beverage usage, we want to convert that to office accommodation because we would have a prospective tenant for that. I mentioned nutrient neutrality and the impact on some of our potential house building. We still need to get on with site disposals that are planned, even if the actual building of those houses and the submission of planning applications may be delayed. So we're seeking executive approval to commence the preparation of 2 council-owned housing sites, which is Newham Hall and Nunthorpe Grange. And then finally, there's a report on the Old Town Hall. So that's seeking executive permission to submit an expression of interest to the Heritage Lottery Fund so that we can get additional funds to undertake restoration works in the same way that we have with the Captain Cook pub, and then hopefully get some use for the Old Town Hall. And apologies for my connection, Chair. Apologies that you can't see me. But that's the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's fine, Tony. It's not your problem. That's great. So, yep. Okay. Now, has any members got questions for Tony on his updates? Can you raise your hand, or and I'll take it as it comes. Councillor Arundel.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of things, Tony. First of all, we have 2 establishments now, or will have shortly, with the same title virtually, MDC. You know, that might cause some confusion with people. I very much welcome the Mayoral Development Corporation because it would have greater powers than the MDC that I sit on. But it's just a little bit of an unfortunate thing that they both have the same headline, MDC, as their headings. So yeah. The other thing is on the extension of youth services, there's an issue. Can I talk to you later about that? There's a particular issue where a youth provision is required, and they might need some help from the council or whatever. It's a charity, but they do need some assistance. So I'll talk to you outside of this meeting about it, if that's okay.
Thanks, Rod. Yeah, I agree with you on the MDC, and it's something we're looking at. And you know, it may be that there needs to be a name change for one of the 2 things, so we haven't got 2 MDCs. And then on the youth provision, yeah, more than happy to have a chat. I'll get Claire to set something up so we can have a chat.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks very
Tony.
much. Thanks, Chair. Yeah.
Councillor Davison.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you, Tony, we've now got another huge building, the House of Fraser, that's closed in town. Have we any plans for these 2 buildings up with the House of Fraser and Debenhams?
Okay, thanks, Dorothy. So House of Fraser, yes. There are a couple of options that we're looking at the moment. We've been in discussions with 2 separate parties about proposed uses for House of Fraser. We're just Richard Horniman is just doing some further work on those proposals, and we're due to discuss them in the next 7 days. So I'm hopeful that we'll come up with a solution that brings that back into use relatively quickly. With Debenhams, we don't own Debenhams, of course. So we are looking at that as whether or not that would make sense as a strategic acquisition. But we've got a lot of exposure already on that. And we're also in discussions about potentially doing something about the other empty unit at that crossroads. So you'll have to forgive me, I call it the Chelsea Girl unit. I know Chelsea Girl doesn't exist anymore, but the smaller one that's diagonally opposite the House of Fraser building, where we've got a potential to bring that back into use as well. So that is a really strategic part of the town centre. So we absolutely want to get something going on in those buildings as quickly as we can. So more likely House of Fraser and the building diagonally opposite it before Debenhams, I would think.
Thank you,
Okay,
Tony.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Any other members got any questions or comments for Tony? Can't see any, Tony. So I'd like to thank you very much for your update on this occasion, Tony. And as you say, unfortunately, we can't see your face, but you're very welcome to stay
It's
on.
better that way, Chair.
Okay. Right. Okay then, Tony. That's fine. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Well, before we go to agenda item number 7, which is the Coaching Community's final report, I've decided to bring the chair's updates forward because, as you know, there's a few chairs who may have to leave the meeting a bit early, so we'll go to their updates. Thank you. First on the list is Councillor Arundel, who's substituting Councillor McTeague for the environment. Could you give us your update?
Thank you, Chair. I've been given this at short notice, so forgive me reading from script. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
no
Economic
problem.
Development, Environment and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel met on the 15th of June 2022. I was unable to attend that meeting, unfortunately. The panel received an overview of the work of the Environment and Community Services and Regeneration and Culture Services areas from the respective directors. Following that item, a report was presented to assist members of the panel to consider and agree their work programme for 22-23 municipal year. The panel discussed the topical issues and suggested that had been received from councillors, members of the public and service areas, and it was a very extensive list which I've seen a copy of. The panel agreed one main topic and 8 short reviews or updates. A list of topics selected will be submitted to the next meeting of the Overview Scrutiny Board for approval. Dates for the meetings for the rest of the committee cycle were agreed by the panel, and members also discussed holding additional informals throughout the year. The panel's final report on the Green Strategy was presented to the Executive at the meeting held on the 14th of June 2022 and deferred at the chair of the EDI Scrutiny Panel's request. Now, I have some issues with that, to be quite honest. I won't go into it today, but I'm not very happy about that at all. The chair suggested some amendments and the panel agreed to give further consideration to the final report at the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 20th of July 2022. That's the report I've read to you and submitted to you. I can't answer any questions only because I wasn't at the meeting. So I hope you'll accept that.
Okay, Ron, okay, Councillor Randall, that's fine, thank you very much. We come down to Councillor McCabe, Children and Young Peoples. Dennis, can you, for the benefit of the YouTube, can you state which panel you're chair of before you start your update, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm the chair of the Young Persons Learning Scrutiny Panel. We held a meeting on the 20th of June. Members were updated with the last 2 OSB meetings. At the meeting, we received an overview of education and learning from Rob Brown, Director of Education and Partnerships. He provided us information on the main service areas within his remit and the outline of priorities for the forthcoming year. The panel also discussed topics of inclusion in its works programme 22-23 and agreed to undertake a short review of school meals and physical education. Also, an in-depth review of youth offending and partnership working within schools. Also, early learning for young children first joining school. These topics will be submitted to a future meeting with the OSB for approval. The panel also considered and approved the content of its final report on the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities SEND and agreed recommendations for the inclusion of the report and will be submitted to the next OSB for ratification before going to executive for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Dorothy Davison, please. Dorothy?
Yeah, good morning. I'm chair of Children and Young People's Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel. The Children and Young People's Social Care and Scrutiny Panel met yesterday, the 21st of June. The Executive Director of Children's Services provided us with an overview of children's services in terms of structure and the services it provides, and also highlighted to us the key priorities and challenges for the year ahead. We considered possible review topics for inclusion on our work programme for the year ahead and a number of updates that we'll be like to receive. These will be included within the panel's work programme report to be submitted to the next meeting of OSB. We also received an update in relation to the Ofsted monitoring visit carried out in March 22, which covered matching placements and decision making for children in care and planning and achieving permanence for children. That's my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davison. Come to Councillor Platt, Adult Social Care.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm Chair of the Adult Social Care and Services Scrutiny Panel. Our next meeting is scheduled for later on today. The Director of Adult Social Care and Health Integration will provide the panel with an update regarding the integration of health and social care. In addition, an overview of the Adult Social Care Department will be provided, which will assist members in setting the panel's work programme for this year. The panel will also continue with its current investigation into the role of the voluntary and community sector in supporting adult social care, obviously with a focus on COVID-19 recovery, and we'll be doing that in September. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Platt. Next, Councillor Chris McIntyre on culture and communities. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I'll talk about the final report, if that's okay.
Well, Chris, we come into that on the next on the agenda. So can you just give us an update on what your panel has done up to now?
All right, hold on then. Let's get the paperwork. Yeah, well, basically, what we did, we were finishing off the topics on the final report. So we got some presentations together, basically just to finalise the report, Chair, which I'll go into detail when that comes up on the agenda. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McIntyre, I understand you stood in for Councillor Jones on health yesterday. Unfortunately, to a unexpected bereavement, Councillor Jones couldn't attend the meeting. So could you give a brief update on what happened yesterday at health, please? Are you there, Chris? Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute there, talking away, and I was on mute. Councillor Chris McIntyre speaking, Vice Chair of Health Scrutiny Panel. We met yesterday. Basically, we had two presentations, one from the Director of NHS Tees Valley Clinical Commissioning Group, and the other from Director of Public Health for South Tees. They discussed their service areas. The rest of the meeting was basically setting the work programme for this year, and what we've decided to do, the first topic we're going to look at will be dental care. So more about that in the weeks to come. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor McIntyre. I believe that's it from the Chair's update. So I'd like to thank all the Chairs for them quick updates. Thank you. We go to the agenda item number 7, Chris. I'm going to bring you in now because that's the final report on enforcement in Middlesbrough and its impact on crime and antisocial behaviour. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. Councillor Chris McIntyre speaking, Chair of Culture and Communities. The panel undertook a review of enforcement in Middlesbrough and its impact on crime and antisocial behaviour. I would just like to thank the officers producing this report, and especially those from external agencies who do a fantastic job for our communities. I assume you've all read the report, so I'd just like to briefly mention the recommendations, which you will find on page 24. Okay, so a general awareness session should be rolled out for elected members to discuss community safety partnership, the roles of community safety teams, and how to raise a community trigger. Secondly, promotion of the community trigger should be shared with elected members and local communities. 3, we recommend the council continue discussions with Cleveland Police to ensure the correct resources are allocated to Middlesbrough. Recommendation 4, that Middlesbrough Council work in partnership with ASB
which is a charity, and sign up to the ASB pledge. And also that members receive 6 monthly updates from the locality wards regarding stats for crime and antisocial behaviour. And also we receive further reports once the locality work is rolled out to other wards. That's about it, Chair, but I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Has anybody got any questions or comments regarding that? Is that you, Councillor Cook?
It is.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome you to the committee, by the way.
Oh, thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much. So one of the things I would just like to take up is point 105, where we talk about high-level interventions. There's actually a high-level intervention that's commonly used, which is around support. And there's been quite a few instances, which actually total probably more than all of them, where we've supported people into more appropriate accommodation. And it actually saves, well, Mr. Perryman will be happy about this because it doesn't involve him normally and saves us a ton of money because we don't have to go through courts, we don't have to do any of that. It's just about making sure people are appropriately housed. And it would actually be sort of good if that was sort of recognised more because we don't just have to do the enforcement. Sometimes there's a more appropriate approach sometimes.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cook. Do you want to answer that, Councillor McIntyre?
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Cook. Comments noted. I think they're very valid points. So yeah, we'll bear that in mind for future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can't see nobody else's hands up. So thanks very much for that, Councillor McIntyre. We'll go to agenda item number 8, is which the school exclusions, the feedback from the school visits. I believe we've had a bit of a feedback from the first visit, Caroline. We've had, this is about the Ormsby School Academy, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Yeah, but I don't know. Forgive me. I can't see Councillor Lowry. I'm not sure where. Are you there,
Yeah.
Alma?
She's not, Councillor Saunders. She's no
not
longer
here,
a
is
member of. She's no longer a member of the board now.
Oh, well, there you go. That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you know something? Yeah, yeah. She told me that on the visit, so I'll just go back. So the reason why I asked Councillor Lowry is because it was me, Alma, and Tom went to Ormsby Academy on the 25th of May. On a personal level, I was very impressed in what the headmistress and the vice principal showed us around the academy, showed us talk to the pupils. They're doing everything possible to keep them children in the mainstream school. As I said, there's special rules for them. There's one-to-ones. It really was impressive in what they presented to us that day. And as I say, I'm not sure whether you want to do anything, add to anything that Caroline, as you were there as well.
Yeah, it was just to say, obviously, they informed the members around the level of investment they've put into the school in terms of creating specialist provisions so that children who were at risk of permanent exclusion or had received a fixed term exclusion were able to have an opportunity to spend some time outside of their normal classroom and in a sort of specialist provision where they went and spent a period of time and then will be reintegrated back into their normal lessons. They were having real success with that. They were doing a lot of work and we got to speak to some of the pupils who had made great progress in terms of they'd received quite a few fixed term exclusions previously, but since they've introduced this new model, they haven't received any fixed term exclusions and their attendance in schools increased and just their general engagement. And it was really impressive to see how much effort and thought had gone into it and also how much resource they'd invested in terms of recruiting specialist staff to run that facility. And they were very keen for us to come back sort of in 6 months' time, September time maybe even, and revisit the school and see how things had changed or what impact that had since then. So I think the councillors obviously there were very keen to undertake that future visit and see how things are progressing in a few months' time. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Caroline. Thank you. before I take any question, I'm just going to say, you know, I know this is a big board. I'm really sad to see that Councillor Halawi is not on this board. Very passionate councillor, and she really gets stuck into topics. That's just my personal thing. So, as I say, good luck. Councillor, is that you, Councillor Thompson? Have you got a question?
I think
Comment?
Councillor McCabe.
Oh,
Councillor
sorry.
Chair, I
McCabe.
haven't got my hand up. It's not me.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
Councillor
sorry.
McCabe.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was invited to go to Wackland Grange, or the old Stainsby School, as some of the older members may recognise it. Unfortunately, the meeting was cancelled due to the sudden death of a member of staff. I also forgot to mention in my presentation, we're planning to visit nearly every school in the next coming academic year, if possible, so we can get a feel of how these schools are running. Chair, forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Well, if that's the case, Dennis, yeah, we look forward to bring us to, you know, when you bring your updates through the board. So yeah, we look forward to that. Thank you. Okay, move on to agenda item number 9 is the strategic plan for 2021-2024, progress of year end 2021-22. Believe Gemma Coulter.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I'm going to have to leave the meeting. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Arundel, thank you. No problem.
Thank you.
Gemma, are you going to present this?
Hi, Chair. Yeah, if that's all right. What I'll do is I'll just give you a succinct summary. It's actually the corporate performance results for the year end for 21-22. So it picks up on the strategic plan stuff, but it also factors in every other one of our performance disciplines as well. Presume you've all got the report in front of you, so I'll just go through some of the key points, and if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer, or I'll certainly go away and get those answers for you.
And you want these after your update, yeah? The questions
whatever works best for you, Chair. Yeah,
thank you.
So this report gives an update on corporate performance, as I said, at year end 21-22. Overall, there was a slight improvement in our performance from the previous reported position at Q3. In 3 of our 7 performance disciplines. So what I'll do is I'll just go through and I'll touch upon each of those areas. And the first one is around executive report actions. So there are any reports that go through executive for approval. At the end of that report, there's always a section of what was previously recommendations and our actions. And they're lifted up and put into one of our performance systems, and it gives executive the assurance that the things that they've approved in reports are actually being delivered, and we report on how on track those actions are. So we had just over 76% of those as on target by year end, and that's an improvement from the Q3 position. And what we also include in these corporate performance reports, Chair, are any amendments to those executive actions. So if there's any reason as to why some of those timescales might have slipped, we ask for the action owners to identify what the impact of that change is and why that change is required, and then executive approve them at each quarterly report. So there were 7 in there, and they're summarised in paragraph 10, and they're also detailed in appendix 1 of that report. The strategic plan outcomes are the improvements that we expect to see as a result of delivering our strategic plan work plan, and they're all the milestones and the project plans that Tony referenced in his chief exec's update. So we had just over 41% of those outcomes either improving or static against the Q3 position by year end. And the ones that are identified as being red are red because they're not achieving their current target, but they're also of a short-term worsening position. And just to kind of give the board some assurance as to the reasoning behind that, because I think red always sounds worse than it actually is. They seem to this as a result of national issues or something that's not necessarily within our control as a council. So the household waste figure, the year-end recycling rate isn't actually available until the end of this month. So the year-end position reflects as at date at Q3. So we would expect to see some improvement in that with the next round of reporting. Additional affordable homes was obviously impacted by COVID, and that's when that data was taken from. So we would expect to see as housing now increases that figure improve. The street warden enforcement actions, we've changed how we report and collect that data, and it's very much more real time now. So we'll see improvements in that this year. And also around the satisfaction, there's a few there that relate to around the satisfaction of the way the council runs things, how residents feel safe during the day and at night. They were all part of questions that were asked as part of our budget consultation. So the response rate, as you know, varies year on year. So those measures should be viewed with caution. So I'll move on to the strategic plan work plan, which is all of the individual initiatives that make up the strategic plan and impact on those outcomes. So performance at year end exceeded our expected target of 90%. And as you know, we've since refreshed that work plan for 22-24. And as Tony referenced earlier, that was approved by executive earlier this year. And the quarterly corporate performance results will be presented quarterly to executive and the overview and scrutiny board. Strategic risks. So we've reviewed the way that we capture and report against strategic risks going forward. So what we've done is, rather than having a whole chunk of strategic risks and directorate risks, we've themed them into 5 categories, and they will be reflective of the strategic plan, directorate plans, and kind of business as usual things that the way we operate. So you'll see much more of a golden thread between how we report on risks, and that will be reflected in the Q1 report. The 5 categories are listed in the report, so if anybody's got any questions, we can pick those up. Directorate priorities are the pieces of work that we deliver at directorate level. So whereas your strategic plan is more of your strategic initiatives, the directorate priorities are something that are specific to each of those directorates. We monitor those by milestone plans, and at year end, 60% of those were completed, below the expected standard of 90%. But a lot of those have been picked up in refresh of this year, and we've approved the 22-23 directorate priorities alongside the new strategic plan work plan. And I think that offers a more cohesive approach to how we deliver our key priority activities across the council services. Programmes and projects at year end, we have 92% of them on track to deliver against project time, cost, scope and benefits, and that's above where we expected them to see. And then the report goes on to talk about some key compliance matters. And we've seen improved compliance with statutory requests, that's our FOIs and EIRs, because we've invested in additional resources. We've reduced overdue live complaints, and we've reduced overdue subject access requests. And again, we've invested in additional resources to reduce that backlog and stop that happening going forward. So essentially, the report is asking executive to note, it asked executive, and it was approved earlier this month, to note achievement of the implementation of the strategic plan of the period 21 to 24 and the directorate priorities for 21-22, the amendments to executive actions, and also our updated position in relation to strategic risk. And all of that you'll see implemented in the Q1 report, which we'll bring back to OSB. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Has any members got questions or comments regarding the report? Can't see any. No. Thank you very much, Gemma, for that. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem. Thanks, Chair.
We go to agenda item number 10 is the revenue and capital budget. Yeah, ending outturn position 21-22. I believe Andrew Wumble is going to.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
This report, Andrew, go ahead. Thank you.
I'll go through the main points. I'll go through the summary and then go through the main points, highlight the main paragraphs. And then if you don't mind, I'll take questions at the end. And
that's fine, Andrew. Yeah,
if there's anything I can't answer, I'll go back and come back to you on it. So basically, as you've said, Chair, this advises OSB of the council's financial position at year end 21-22. And we also include the effect of COVID-19 in the council's finances. As in previous quarterly reports, we've kept the COVID separately from the non-COVID elements to make it easier. So what this does is this provides OSB with the necessary financial details to discharge their responsibilities, setting out the financial revenue and capital budget outturns at year end 21-22. It gives position statements in relation to council's borrowing reserves, and it also says the actions that the council has taken to address any issues raised. What this does is it shows initially in the 21-22 year-end position that there's a 2.462 million overspend on non-COVID-19 elements. The table in paragraph 10 summarises this quite nicely, and it shows it per directorate. And as you can see from that, as you're well aware, it's mainly the children's pressure, which is the problem area still, offset by savings in other areas. So we then, as you were aware, in council in October 2021, we approved the use of the implementation of a flexible use of capital receipts strategy. And that produced at year end, final year end, 5.017 million of funding by using the flexible use of capital receipts strategy. This then leads us to create essentially an underspend position of 2.325 million on the non-COVID elements. So it's a lot clearer in the table on paragraph 10 how that comes about. We then separately, the details of the directorates, by the way, variances are shown in paragraphs 23 to 83, and those include children's, which is a main one for you to look at really, is in paragraphs 49 to 77. So what we have is, we also have the financial effect of COVID in 21-22, and it's not been as great as in previous years against the funding we've got from the government. So we've got a pressure of £390,000 on COVID at the end of 21-22. That is detailed quite extensively in paragraphs 84 to 111, and the table in paragraph 110 will summarise that, how that 390,000 is made up of. There's then, I won't go through each one because there's a number of, in the report we've been extremely transparent of what we've done with reserves and detailed each move we've made from reserves. So there's a number of ins and outs to reserves and moves around of reserves. The main points to note is that we're creating a special reserve for car parking pressures. We've found that since COVID, car parking hasn't recovered to the levels that were pre-COVID. So post-COVID, we've re-evaluated since we set the budget, and we're setting aside a reserve of £782,000. That will help cover the pressures in the life of the MTFP on car parking. And also then ultimately we create a social care transformation reserve of approximately 7 million, which is mainly going to be for children's services pressures that are going to still exist in the coming year, and the reforms that are happening in adult social care. We've created that by basically the flexible capital receipts and also merging together a number of reserves which had a similar purpose to do with children's and adult social care. So we've merged them all into one reserve, which basically provides us some help in 22-23. That is fully detailed in paragraphs 158 to 163, and there's a summary of the reserves and table in paragraph 160, and appendix 2 gives further details of the reserves. And so that gives a full in-depth details of all the reserves we've got for you. And that's really important to note that. The next thing is the capital budget. There's a final year-end outturn of 9 million. And then again, that's against more or less 59 million, which means we're slightly underspent. There was mainly slippages which happened through not being able to spend due to COVID, not getting suppliers, delays in projects, etc. As you can all aware, if you've ever had anything done on your house, it takes ages. So that's where we are at year end on capital. That's detailed in paragraphs 120, 150, and there's a table in paragraph 127 which summarises that. Also, as per the normal process, executive on a quarterly basis revise the investment strategy, and that is included for your appendix 1. So that then becomes the new investment capital budget for us to run against in the new year. Just another point to make, the only other thing to point out is there's a section in the report on borrowing and prudential indicators, and that's detailed in paragraphs 151 to 157. And that will give you the details you need to know that the council isn't over borrowing, has the control over the amount of money it's borrowing. And so that's really important section for you to read as well. I know I've gone through that fairly quickly, but I've tried to highlight the main points. There's obviously a lot of pages in the report. It's very detailed. So if you've got any questions on it, I'm willing to take now, or if you want to come back to me, or if you've got anything you want to come back on, please feel free to. So over to yourselves.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that report. Any members got questions for Andrew at all? Can't see any. You got off there. You got off lightly there, Andrew.
I have.
I'm just you know, in your own opinion, I know, you know, it is going to be a bad year coming up with inflation skyrocketing and one thing. You know, are we in a secure? But not. Are we secure this year?
I think what we'd say is we're as good as we can be.
Yeah.
That's not really an answer, but we're not. If you ask me perfectly, am I happy? And the answer would be no, because I'd be happy when we know that we can balance. But I can see us definitely having. That's why it's really important where I've specified the reserves. If we hadn't got a reserve aside for children's, I'd be sat here saying I'm extremely worried.
Yeah.
If that will buy us a bit of time. In theory, it would have been brilliant if inflation hadn't come along, hyperinflation and the additional inflation. That has thrown a spanner in the works for a lot of councils. So every council now is looking at the budget they set in February or January is now basically out of date.
Yeah.
The additional. The good thing is we made budget provision in the report to council in February of about 4.6 million for additional inflation. At the time, if you asked me, in November when we were thinking about it, we thought we can't really get away with putting anything in for that. Then in February, we thought we might have gone a bit high on that. Looking back, it looks about okay. It might just cover us for now. But bearing in mind, if I could predict what was happening in inflation, I wouldn't be sat here. I'd be working for a detailed policy. And the problem is, I think where we are now, I'm happy. Additional ongoing inflation happening again later in the year or in next year, I personally think it will be impossible for most councils or places to accommodate that again. It's really going to be hard. I know a lot of councils are now into, I would say, emergency budget cuts, like closing services during this year before next year's budget. Now, we're nowhere near that position. So that gives me help. If you want to put a guidance, I think we're in the middle of most authorities. We're not at the bottom, we're not at the top, we're not the richest, we're not the poorest, if you want to put it that way. So I think where we are is as good as we can be, Chair. I think I'd be happy if we were better, but what we're seeing is, as Tony's mentioned, there's a lot of pressures coming forward from the services. Some of them are inflation, which we've got covered, but others we haven't got covered to the extent that we need. And there's going to have to be some, as Tony's mentioned earlier, there will potentially have to be some decisions made in balancing the budget next year. So I think, if anything, it's going to be a difficult year. It's going to be a difficult, and that's no different to any other council. Every other council will be having the same discussions. And your previously affluent councils have been hit heavily on income from COVID, effects of income on their income levels from COVID, which is really interesting because they before had big amounts of money from parking income, etc., which has been hit dramatically. So with us being not that being a big area of our budget, we haven't been affected as badly in areas like that. So I think that's the short answer. Is I'm happy as I can be, but I think it's going to get harder. And so prepare for not good news in the next time I come here. Probably.
Well, unfortunately, as you say, we can't forecast the future. But I think we all know we're in for a hard time. But I'm just glad that we are in a position what we're in at the minute. You know, and just I can only speak from yourself. I just like to thank you and your officers and all your colleagues for doing what you're doing, because you are keeping the council afloat at the moment. So thank you very much for that, Andrew. I don't know whether anybody else has got any comments. Andrew, not. Okay. Well, there's a thumb up there, Andrew. So I know you might not be able to see, but there's a thumb up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Andrew. Thanks very much for that. Sorry,
That's
Brian.
Thanks, Chair. I think myself and Councillor Thompson were waiting to come in there.
Sorry, Janet. I'll bring Councillor Wood in first.
Yeah, I'd just like to. I know Andrew's mentioned spanning the works with the interest rates and the cost of fuel. As I see another one with the planning restraints on house building. Can Andrew tell us if the council have any plan in place if we do have a fall in council tax revenue due to the planning restraints? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, we will obviously have to consider. We're obviously keeping an eye on where we are with house building. We have got a number of house building that are already approved. So we've been I would say, very cautious in the MTFP at the moment on house growth. We haven't gone, a lot of councils may have gone over the top on it and presumed a lot. For example, we haven't assumed any sort of more income from new homes bonus or its replacement. We've only really taken into account what's there as house building at the moment. So in the future, yes, that will hit us heavily, but in the short term, in the MTFP, I think where we are is we've only assumed a very cautious what's there. In the long term, yes, it will hit us if we do have restraints on house building. I think a bigger thing as well is the rates of, as well as a growth in council tax base, it's a collection of the council tax, which is proving difficult as well. And that's something we'll have to take into account when we do a revision of the MTFP, because our collection rates includes both an element of growth and collection. And I think where we minded to at the moment is take that down from something like 96 to probably 95%, because in reality, we've got the two strands of house building issues maybe, and also the council tax collection. So I think where I am at the moment is in the short term, I'm pretty confident, but we can't put big amounts in. And I would say, if anything, I'll be lessening what I've got in at the moment, Councillor Hubbard. So I think you're correct on that. Like there's all sorts of things in house building as well. Are we in a sort of mini recession, and is house building going to suffer? And I think we're seeing the first signs of that if you're ever logged on to the portals and estate agents, you'll see now that house prices are getting reduced, which is the first time I've seen that for a couple of years, which is surprising. So I think there might be the start of a house building decline, I think, or a house buying and purchasing decline. So, but at the moment, what we've got in reflects what is in place and what plans are there. So they don't need any more plan; they're already on site, etc. So I hope that's a good enough answer. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, mine was actually the same question as Councillor Hubbard, because I was on planning and we had a presentation last Friday, and as you know, that all overnight stay accommodations are on hold because of the nutrients. So thanks, Any Road.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Janet. Councillor McCabe, I believe you had your hand up, did you?
No, Chair, I was just I've put a little clap in. Thanks for the presentation.
All right. Okay. I think
Thanks
that's
very
it.
much. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Andrew, for that. Thank you. Right. Okay, we go on. agenda item number 12. Well, we've had the scrutiny's update, so that's okay. Any other urgent items? Just like to bring one in. It's the date for the next meeting. It was for the 21st of July, Thursday, but due to collision with the leadership meeting for Tony and leading officers, we've changed that to Tuesday the 19th. Caroline, do you want to come in with more details, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just unfortunate it clashes with the leadership management team on a Thursday morning, so we were hoping that we can move it to the morning of Tuesday, the 19th of July at 10 a.m. if that's okay with everyone. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I just have one item. We're all on scrutiny panels, and you've probably had this discussion within your panels, but it's obviously it's about the face-to-face meetings. I just like the board's view on how I know it's going to full council, but how we feel about going back into town hall or virtual. I know there's a mixture of thoughts about it, but I would just like a quick view with the board to see what they feel. Obviously, I know some of the members' views, but I haven't spoke to many. So I've got Councillor Cook and Councillor Thompson. So we'll take Councillor Thompson first, Chris, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't have a problem going back into the town hall for face-to-face meetings. We're already doing it with the council meetings, and we're already doing it with planning and licensing a meeting back in the town hall. So I don't have a problem with going back in the town hall. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Janet. Chris, Councillor Cook.
I think when it's sort of during work time, so like this, I can like just quickly sit in the office and do it. But if I had to like physically come to the building, I'd probably struggle to do that reliably, because I'd obviously have to take time off work. Whereas this, I can just quickly nip on and continue working a little bit.
Right, yeah. Okay, thanks, Chris. Councillor McCabe.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I brought this up in my scrutiny panel on Monday. It was a 50-50 vote, really, on where it would go if they wanted to go in and come out. Personally, I think we should, if you can, keep it virtual. It's handy for inviting guests in, because we can't even provide parking facilities for guests in the town hall. We can't even give them a cup of tea, and, we're supposed to be a professional running outfit, and we can provide a cup of tea for our visitors who are going to give us valuable information. Virtual, it's easy for us. Fuel costs, these people come from far away. It saves them time. They can work from home or work. The executive, Tony Parkinson's just mentioned, Fountains Court will only hold 40% of the staff. So if we start going full meetings, most of the staff are going to have to be in that office, where they're all going to sit on each other's lap. I think this is a new way of working, and COVID brought it in, and I think we should enhance it. So that's my view. I think we should keep virtual as much as you can until there's a decision has to be made. Then it'll have to be a live meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Cheers, Dennis. Councillor Hubbard.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm mindful that the meeting should be face to face. I think there's a large element of the way the meetings operate when they're not face to face. I think you can gain more from face to face. That's my opinion. I would prefer them to be face to face. I think those who can't attend meetings for one way or the other, like Councillor Coke, I think the council should be looking into bringing into hybrid meetings. So those who prefer to operate from home can do, and those who can make face-to-face meetings can. I think the attendances have increased since they've been virtual, which is a plus. But I think there's a way there where we can have hybrid meetings to accommodate everyone. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. I totally agree with everything you just said there. Yeah, Councillor Davison.
Yes, Chair, thank you for that. I would actually prefer virtual, because it would add an hour to a meeting for me if I had to come to the town hall, but I would do it if I had to. But I would prefer virtual because in my scrutiny panels, I like to invite people from different sections and from different areas to give evidence. And those, it would be impossible for them to come to the town hall. I can understand we could hold some of them in the town hall and some of them virtual if we had a guest coming that couldn't actually motor or travel to us. But as Dennis said, we can't offer a car parking spot. We can't even offer a cup of tea now because I do believe the kitchen no longer exists. So I prefer virtual, Chair.
Thanks, Dorothy. Yeah. All that, and that is, you know, I mean, being in the town hall recently, and I just like to see a bit of life back into the town hall. You know, it's a cool place. You know, obviously through COVID it's been closed, but you know, I think hybrid is the future, to be truthful, because as you say, one way or another, we've all got our own opinions of what we'd like to do. But I believe there's only one bit of kit to support this hybrid, Caroline. Is that right at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, there is a piece of work going on to look at the hybrid provision of meetings within the town hall, to look at installing the necessary equipment, but we don't have the facilities at the moment to run hybrid meetings from all of the town hall meeting rooms, such as the Mandela Committee Room or the Oberhausen Committee Room, etc. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Caroline. Councillor Thompson, you've got your hand up. I'm not sure whether you want to come in again or...
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
It's just to report on the knock-on effect that that's happening while we're meeting virtual. The carriageway cafe, which was really successful and a brilliant cafe within our town centre, was well used. That shut down because of COVID. And the reason why it's not opening now is because there's no staff working in the town hall, so there's not a need. If we do get staff working back into the town hall, then I'm sure we would get the carriageway cafe back open again, and that would be generating income. Thank you, Chair.
Totally agree, Janice. Yeah, totally agree. Well, okay, I think you know, I mean, this could be noted for whatever happens at the full council, because I believe there's something on there about that. Dennis, have you got your hand up again?
Yes, Chair. I've just taken note of the officers who've attended today, and they're all being at home. I rest my case.
Yeah, well, we're all at home, Dennis, aren't we? So, Jim, do you want to come in?
I wonder what happened before COVID. Anybody answer me that? Simple. You were all in the town hall. There was no problem. Everybody came in, parked up or whatever. So COVID created this, and we've kept it going after COVID. For me, it's face to face.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Chair. Just to, I know Councillor McCabe was saying, you know, all the officers are at home, but the emphasis is on officers, more than one. It takes more than one to operate on a virtual meeting, where it's cost cutting if you just have meetings at town halls. But, you know, keep saying we're trying to cut costs and help everyone out. Like I say, I'm sure, like you said, Chair, hybrid is the way. Those who want to attend can attend on the day, and those who can't can you know, join in those meetings that way. But I think that the senior management should definitely be looking into speeding up the development of hybrid meetings, and where can exist currently in the town hall, this should be taking place. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hubbard. Yeah. Councillor McCabe, do you want to come in again?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. I agree with Councillor Hubbard. Going hybrid, which I think is the way forward. You know, it will get people meeting each other, and if you can't make it, you can come hybrid. But I remember a debate many years ago. We were trying to get a voting system into the town hall, better than a show of hands. We're still waiting for that to be developed. I also remember the PA system in the chamber was antiquated and out of sync. It's still no better now. You know, we're talking about hybrid, which is great. It's a major capital investment for IT. We're trying to save money. You know, you're going to have an investment in something. So going back, history says it all. We couldn't even get a voting system, and the PA system in the chamber is, well, let's just leave it at that.
I just, I mean, we could talk forever on this, but I believe, you know, face to face, I mean, just going back what Councillor Thompson said, you know, you've got officers in the town all coming back into work. They need to go out for lunch. It's a big picture, you know, that they support the cafes and the sandwich bars in the town, which are, you know, it brings the footfall back into town, which we all need. For me, you know, it's all the atmosphere on, and we talk at scrutiny panels, Dennis, really, you know, I know, because obviously the chamber, we all go on full council now. We're talking about scrutiny panels, and I just like the atmosphere in the rooms, and you can get, without sounding too hippie-ish, you can get a better vibe in the rooms, you know, really, you know, the mood of the room, it just brings a bit of a general out on people. I don't know about anybody else, but that's what I think, you know. But I would prefer face to face, but I respect the likes of Councillor Cook who would have to have time off. But as I say, hybrid needs to be looked at and being pushed forward as much as we can. So on that, I'm going to bring Councillor Thompson back in because you've got your hand up, Janet. So
Yeah, I just want to make a final point that
yeah,
I totally second what Councillor Hubbard said. And if we look at our earlier presentation from Tony Parkinson when he was breaking up and we couldn't understand what he was. So, you know, technology, I rest my case.
Okay, Janet. Well, on that case, obviously there's going to be, I think it'll be interesting debate at full council if it's there. So on that note, I'd like to close the meeting. I'd like to thank everybody attending, and that sun shines out. So if you're at home, go and sit in the garden. Okay, we'll see you all later.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everyone.